rather than feeling like, oh, because I don't write a 3-act structure where there's a chaise longue on stage and all of the characters are.
I mean, we need more chaise longues
White
on
men.
stages, to be fair. I want a chaise longue on all my stages. I want a smoke machine on all my stages. That is what I needed to
Don't, I know.
Hello and welcome to the Process Podcast. I will do intros at some point properly. Like, this is never a rehearsed intro. This is just a Tyrone Talks. We know it's chaotic. It's what I do. What isn't chaotic is my choice of guests. I do good guests. I'm good at that. There we go. And today's guest, we've got Elle. Hello there, Elle. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you for joining me on the sofa, my oh-so-elegant sofa. This is also falling apart. I am in the part which is falling apart the most.
No,
but
it's glamorous. You can't tell.
With, the way I like to start off these podcasts is always going into how did we first meet? And I have and I can't remember which one it was, but I feel like it was definitely Genesis Slam would have been the first time we'd have met.
I watched you.
Ooh.
I don't know, was the first Genesis I watched? I think maybe I either watched the first Genesis or signed up immediately. I've got a feeling I wasn't that gung-ho, and I watched the first Genesis, watched you, and I was like, wow, you're really intimidating and really talented. And then the next time I came to Genesis, I competed, and then I think we both got into the final, and then I think we inevitably spoke quite a bit. But for ages, I just had you on a huge pedestal of like, I'm brave and good.
You can keep me on a pedestal. You can keep me on a pedestal. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I think I was just like, I felt very like, oh, these slams are for cool people. And I felt like a mad imposter. And then it was a lovely feeling to be like, oh, we're going to be friends. And then you helped me try and put a first book together. And then we spent lots of time together.
I mean, I find the imposter thing interesting, given that, as we'll go into, you and your whole acting life on stage in front of cameras and all that.
But I felt like, I was like, I'm cheating. I'm cheating in the slam poetry world because I know how to perform. But I hadn't long been performing my poetry. So there was a lot of, I don't know, low self-esteem, imposter syndrome, trained as an actor. Of course I had low self-esteem. Give off confidence was better now, but especially in my 20s, cripplingly like, just we walked into settings like that and I was like, everyone is cool. Everyone knows their shit. Everyone shouts out new shit. And I'm just like, I stick out like a sore thumb. I don't belong here.
I guess it is that thing I always forget with poetry, in that, especially in the London scene, again, I can't speak for other scenes, but we've definitely built up our own narrative, things that are very London specific. Yeah. And I forget that, this is just what we've decided to do here. This is not what everyone knows.
Totally. And I think I'm thankful that Genesis was one of the first slams that I got into, because I've been to other slams where it's a lot more like, I don't know, status, and there's a bit of ego, and there's a lot of ego, and there's people that treat it a bit like closed shop. Genesis, I felt like, was like, come on in. Yeah, nice. Even if you feel insecure.
Nicely phrased. Well, I guess that's kind of leads us on nicely into our whole timelines section. So for our timeline section, we go into your past, present, and future. Wow, words. Phrasing.
As a poet or as a...
I'm going for as a creative. I'm doing this whole podcast to deal with other creators. So I've had comedians, I've had musicians on this. I say comedians, I've had one comedian on it. But there will be comedians, and we'll have multiple. I'm manifesting it, but it's covering everything. So nice. Especially because you've got the acting background.
Yeah.
Like when did the whole performing of any kind start for you? Like, how did you get into the creative life?
Honestly, since like the age of about 4, when I was, I just was like, people go to university, people go to a vet school if they want to be a vet. Where do the actors go? And I was lucky because my dad knew about that world. He's always been an amazing storyteller. He worked late a lot, but when he was home and he read you stories, he could do all of these voices. And so I think that we all learn, me and my 3 siblings, that like storytelling and then making shows. Like somebody was talking about this the other day that I was chatting to, of like your first experiences of like making theatre. And like, I was the older sister. So it was like, okay, you three, you are my cast. These are your costumes.
Yeah.
And now you say it. And yeah, and dressing up in like my old like ballet costumes that didn't fit me anymore. Like we always had a very eclectic kind of real messy and alternative dressing up box. But it was like, right, this is this character and this is this character. And I'd write stories as well. So I was always storytelling in some way from a very young age. And then, yeah, it was like so into drama and performing. It was the time when like I didn't feel shy about talking. And I could hold space, and I liked it when people thought I was funny or moving or took me seriously. And the applause and the validation that gave, and learning that like my currency could be that I could entertain people was, yeah, nice and important. And it's something I've always relied on. Then I've always been like a clown within a group, or people have assumed that I'm very confident my whole life because I know how to command space or mask and start going like, we need cheering up. And then suddenly, being a people pleaser, going off on tangents like I'm going off on now, I think. And then, yeah, I think I was very serious about it as soon as I was like, 11, and I realised, right, at one point in this school, you'll pick your GCSE, so I'm going to do drama and dance and media and English literature. And then dance and drama and English literature at college. Auditioned for drama school at 18, was just like desperate, and I just kept being told you're very young. So I was like, I'm not, I could play a 40-year-old already. And I was already kind of dabbling in writing bits of poetry then, but I don't think I realised it was poetry. And then eventually went to drama school, was writing a fair bit in drama school, liked the idea of making my own work in drama school, but because I was on an acting course and had these kind of grand ideas that I would be in the RSC or a period drama, I sort of was shelving that. And then came out of drama school without an agent and realised, it doesn't matter if you're good in this industry. You have to want this. And if there's a door in front of you or a glass ceiling, you have to find a creative hammer, for want of a better word, and make work. Poetry gave me autonomy because it meant I could write the things that I wanted to say. And also short form. I have ADHD, so sitting down and writing a play for a long time seemed like an impossible task. And also something that I had a lot of imposter syndrome about, being clever enough to do that because I trained as an actor, not as someone who knew about words. And then realised I loved performing poetry because I think my acting training was complementing an untrained writing voice that I had. And way, way more scary than performing other people's words. Interesting that you mentioned comedy. I did a tiny bit of stand-up. And I was like, oh yeah, whenever you speak your own words, that's really scary. And I was starting to do things like drying on stage, which I'd never done before with other people's words. But now I think I'm like as much a poet writer as I am an actor. Like I think I'm an all-round artist maker now, which I guess is a good thing. I
mean, I'd like to think that, especially given you've got the book out as well and other things like we've got the book, we've got the two fringe shows, two shows and all that kind of stuff. Like, I feel like an all-round creative is definitely an okay title to be claiming.
Definitely. I think as well, there was a thing on like Twitter years ago where somebody talks about multi-hyphenates, basically being like, if you have more than one thing that you do, like poet, dancer, actor, stay in your lane, pick a thing. It just means you're not good enough at one thing to focus on it. And I was like, oh, that's me. And I was like, no, if you're a hustler, also, if you're working class and you're just like, I need to make my money from art. I'm not a very good waitress and I'm not very good at working behind a bar. Let me mine all of the areas in this very underfunded artistic world in order to make a living and keep myself sane.
I mean, it's the whole creative thing of like, I mean, part of it is also that thing of like, what are you doing it for? Like, I clearly have all the photography gear and all the video gear and doing the poetry.
The same,
like,
multi-hyphenate.
And it's that thing of like, a lot of why I'm doing this, like, here's a spoiler, not many people listen to this podcast. So people do, but it's not like it's massive numbers, but I like doing it for the fun of it.
Totally.
Like, I like doing the photography for the fun of it. So it's like, yes, I'll take those multi-hyphens, and I'm like to say I'm good at the majority of those hyphens, but
it's hard, isn't it, when you've realised you've monetized all your hobbies?
Yes.
I keep having conversations with artists and I'm like, what do we do for fun anymore? Like for ages, for me, it was yoga. Yoga was like the thing that I did for fun to keep me sane. And now I'm a yoga teacher. It's still the thing I do for fun and it keeps me sane. But it's now another added multi-hyphenate to the name. It helps me stay a bit saner in London and make
it's that
sweet dollar bills.
It's always that balance of like, I genuinely like doing photography. So like I've had like so many of my friends, as you can see on my Instagram, come over and like, I want to do a photo shoot today. Come over. I'll take pictures of you and we'll hang out. This is for me just to play around, etc. But then there's part of me that's like, I could make money off of this. I don't want to. And thankfully, I do have friends that if they want headshots for work, headshots for whether it's corporate or acting, etc., if they want someone to properly ask me to do the event officially, etc., they will pay for that. They know that when that stuff, it's a paying thing. Yeah. But also they know that I like doing it as an entertainment thing and like, this is for fun and hanging out. Yeah. And here is the business side. And they respect that enough that like, I'm asking you as a job this time versus a friend hangout. So I think there's space to do both. I'd like to say.
Yeah. It's hard to navigate, I guess, that until you know people well and you trust people well. Yeah. But yeah.
Well, going into with all the hyphens, then like, where is your creative side at the moment? And especially given we've just come off another Edinburgh Fringe one, we've now got the yoga as part of life. Big
Edinburgh Fringe.
We've had the acting, we had the TV acting and some adverts, etc.
Bits and pieces.
Where are things at the moment for you?
I feel like I'm back in a hustle. I feel like at the moment, to be entirely transparent and authentic, my work-life balance is so off balance. The word balance is not appropriate. The hustle is so real. Like, had the very lovely on National Poetry Day, I was interviewed and I did a feature on BBC Six Radio Music as one of their poets of 2023, along with Repeat Beat Poet. Shout out.
They were my guests last time I did a filming of this. I was going to say the episode beforehand. I don't know what order I'm putting these episodes out.
What a mystery.
They have been a guest on this podcast. That's enough.
They are brilliant. And yeah, on the same day went to a Universal Credit meeting.
Yeah.
And yet was working like 45 hours that week because when you're an artist, people don't always pay their invoices on time. So where is my creative career going? At the moment, I'm starting to percolate on ideas for writing something new. My dad the other day was like, you need to write a new poetry book. And I was like, can we just... It's only been a year and a bit. Okay, it's nearly been like 2 years. Yeah. And everyone's like, give us more. Which is good. I guess people aren't being like, shut up, go back in a hole. Trying to make some new stuff, auditioning again a bit with my acting agent. I am trying to hustle together a tour for my 2 shows because I want them to have an outreach that is bigger than London-centric audiences, but also an Edinburgh audience who are more and more getting less and less diverse.
Yeah.
And I just, sort of despair a little bit at how it is to be a theatre maker if you're not upper class. But that's a whole other chat. Well, I don't want to make this depressing.
Well, I guess I was going to say to make it not depressing, but I don't know where we're going to go with this. But while away from the business side of the creative process, where is your creative side at the moment? Like, in terms of the stuff you're writing and making? Is it changed or different to when you started? Where is that at the moment?
That's a really good question. I'm finding it really hard at the moment to separate the business side from the creative side. And I think I feel a bit trapped in the way that creativity so feeds me and so makes me feel like I've been plugged into like a defibrillator or like, you know, suddenly I'm like, oh, there I am, amazing. And it's like, in order to do that side of the art at the moment, I feel like there needs to be a lot of like admin and producing and sitting behind a laptop asking for permission or organisation or meetings. My creativity is, I guess it comes out like, I'm quite fortunate when I'm teaching in a yoga studio. If I know there aren't classes after me, I'll quite often just put on some music and move and let myself get into a free flow state. I'm starting to get again. I think I was really burnt out for a while and so just thinking about the 2 shows that I was doing in Edinburgh. But I'm starting to get there should be a nicer way to describe it, but I don't have one. The kind of vomiting of ideas where it's like, oh, it's coming up. Quick, get a pad, get your phone, write it down. And starting to be like, oh, new shit's coming out of me. That's cool. I think some new ideas are coming out. I think this might be another play, or maybe it's a book. I'd quite like to revisit the first draft of a novel I made in lockdown. God knows when I'll have the time to do that. And like, I've got a Shakespeare audition coming up. So I'm learning a new bit of classical text and realising I love that poetry. I love speaking in verse. I would really love to just be an actor in something quite soon where I'm not wearing several other hats. I have a few poetry gigs coming up, one at the end of this month. I mean, depending on when this goes out, in October.
This is not going to be up.
Our lovely friend Kayla's book launch coming up. And so I'm like, okay, you're here. You can start putting your roots in again and start doing some like low committal performing, writing, doing the things that I teach when I'm teaching writing or acting. Going to acting workshops again that are non-pressurized, because you're not there to perform in order to get a job. You're there to perform in order to perform. I'm finding community again, and trying to fill my creative cup. That's where my creativity is, because it feels a little bit exhausted at the moment. I think I will always be trying to find the balance of how you're not just going from burnout to burnout.
Like, I very much feel that, like, I am always, the more I have these kind of conversations with creators on this podcast and just in general, I know that I am very much seen as this person who does quite a lot of things and does possibly way too many things. And I'm not saying that's not true, but I'm also aware that because I am that person that has the full-time Monday to Friday job that I do genuinely enjoy. Yeah. There's a level of like, anything I do on top of it is my own call. So like, I can go through, like, I've not written a fucking poem. Admittedly, I put out a book earlier this year, but like, I've not fucking written a poem in ages, and I don't feel any rush to need to. Like, my creative side is doing this, which is also my thing of like, I just like talking to people. Yeah. And this is a nice way to do things. And
I think it's like remembering, right, that like all of these creative things feed your creativity. The thing about circling back to them going from the first year I auditioned for drama school, you're really young, like go out and get life experience, is still applicable now. It's like, go and live your life. You don't always need to be the writer who's glued at their desk every day at 5 a.m. doing your 3 hours, doing your morning pages. Actually, you can just be living, and you're still feeding the ideas that way.
It's one of the things I think about with, especially again, I use London scene as my main base. I don't want to try and assume too much of other scenes, but London, especially because of how many poetry nights there are in London, I feel like there was this vibe with a lot of people that I must keep being active on the scene and going to every night and making myself present. And like, if I fall out of people's memory for even a moment, they'll forget me. And it's like, no, they won't. Yeah. Like, if you have a week off because you need a week off, if you have a month off, if you have rather long off, because you need that.
Yeah.
It's not going to be like, oh, well, you've lost your chance to ever feature or perform here.
Totally.
You're fine. Like, for the most part with London, as long as you're good, you're good.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
No one's going to be like, you're good, but I haven't seen you in 6 months, so can't.
And if it is a night that works like that, that isn't the kind of night you want to get involved with anyway, right?
Exactly. Well, then I guess now, hopefully being optimistic and looking to the future, where would you want your future to be, especially given you've got all the hyphens, etc.? Are we keeping all the hyphens? Is there any we want to focus on?
I would love to be working. I think that's been a goal for a few years now, and I haven't quite nailed it. Working smarter, not harder. So being able to do like a little telly job, an advert, which then is going to sustain a creative project, so that then I can spend a bit more time writing, so that then I'm not doing the hustle all of the time. I think it's really difficult, like, because I'm a yoga teacher. If I'm not in an acting job, I'm often teaching yoga on the weekends. And so then you go, well, it's all right, but I'm a freelancer. So like Wednesdays are my day off. The thing is, if you're in a society that works predominantly Monday to Friday, you saying your Wednesday's your day off, it never is a day off. You're never like doing the weekend stuff on a Wednesday. You're doing emails and admin stuff. So I would like there to be better balance. I would like to be getting, I would like to be performing on bigger stages. I feel like I know what I'm doing with fringe theatre, and my work quite comfortably can sit in fringe theatre. Manifest, let's say it out loud and be brave. I'd like to have my work at the Soho. I've wanted that for a while. And I could be doing more to make that happen, and I probably should be doing more to make that happen. I would like to be teaching less, but the classes that I teach, I love, and are in studios or theatres or environments that feel in alignment with who I am and what I want to nurture in any students, whether you're coming to me for a poetry, writing, acting, movement, yoga class, that I'm in spaces that don't feel, that the vibe feels right. Living less hand to mouth would be nice. I don't know how to make that happen as an artist in a Tory government in London.
There's that whole, it's again why I go back to where I am in my life, and that having a salaried Monday to Friday job makes things different and easier in that kind of a way. And like, obviously part of that goes into my creative side. I'm comfortable with what I'm doing. I'm not looking, at least for now, I'm not looking to do acting or getting those kind of jobs and getting those stages. Like part of the, I'm figuring out arts council stuff at the moment, but part of the many reasons why I've not looked to do like a longer show is like, that is time that I don't have and want to put into it. And part of it's obviously level, I don't feel the urge to do that, but it is that thing of balancing all those things is not working. And I like having the comfort of job is sorted and I can, for the most part, live my life.
Totally.
As well. But like, part of that comes into I'm satisfied with the job I have, and I know so many people don't have that as a thing.
Yes, and therefore then the making the art is like, this is my escapism, like this is my lifeblood, and this is what and then it's hard because then they're like, there is a desperation there that's like, give me an escape. It's why I think I am lucky, because it's like my non-acting, I don't know why I did this. I'm not acting. When I'm not acting, my jobs are ones that feed me creatively. And lots of people don't have that. But I'm often like, if you don't want to put on a full hour-long show, don't do it. It's so much work. It doesn't make financial sense. Honestly, it's like a lot of the time being an artist is like being in an abusive relationship where you're like, it doesn't always love you back. Just to the point where you're like, I might actually just take a break for a bit. It's like, oh, here's this lovely little opportunity. And actually, you're really good.
It's the friends who are actors who finally get a big gig and get I'm very aware I'm referencing someone in my head right now, and like I'm not going to name them, and they get the big gig they want to, yet to go on tour with this big gig, and it's like, cool, the cast I'm with are dicks, and I've got a month of this now, and this is I finally landed a gig that's paying nicely, and it's a gig that I really enjoy or whatever.
My mate just got a job and was like, it's a year, like that year is going to give you such financial stability. It's a nice show, but like the person that runs the company is in the show and is bit egotistical and a bit of a maniac, and already before even going into this job my friend's like little bit worried. It might be awful. It feels like there's always a but. There's always a yes, I get to do this and this is amazing, but, and I feel like that with all artistic jobs I've had thus far. Like there's always a something, like I get to go to Edinburgh, I'm doing 2 shows, like this is a big peak in my career and it's amazing, but financially it makes no sense. None whatsoever. Most other things around it are brilliant, but there is always a but. Whether it's the cast of dicks or like you hate the show and you're sort of selling your soul.
I'd be impressed with the cast of dicks when you're doing a one-man show.
I mean,
but we'll go into
sort of when you're like, I have to be alone with my own thoughts again. There's nobody else who's going to take the pressure off. God.
But we will go into that more as we move into our next section. It is called Let's Talk About.
Let's talk about.
We are going into our Let's Talk About section where we've kind of already started to talk about it. So, I mean, we're going to go on tangents. It's how conversations work. Tangents are a thing, but...
all good conversations are tangent.
But we're starting off basically talking about the idea of the theatre show. I'm doing this from a poet's perspective, if you will. I know this isn't purely a poetry podcast, but I guess primarily a poetry podcast. Yeah. And how has it been? Firstly, just overall, tell the people what your shows are about. Because you have the 2 shows, yes? Yes,
have the 2 shows. So when I realise an idea is more long form than let's say like a 3-minute slam piece, and I've started scratching an idea through a piece, which I think is how both shows came about. Honeybee was my first show. It's the first play I've ever written. Came about also through a lot of conversations I was having with people in their mid-20s who had done school and college and uni and had followed all of the steps that all of the grown-ups told them to follow. And then were reaching this point of an identity crisis where they didn't know who they were and they didn't know what they wanted and they couldn't figure out why they were so desperately unhappy. And that being like, it was being termed like the millennial snowflake. And then I was seeing real crisis, like people's mental health was absolutely in the bin, and worrying that people were going to genuinely be able to get through what they were experiencing. And there weren't the tools there, and we didn't have so much vocabulary around it. And, you know, people are like, it's okay to not be okay. And it's like, and then what? And then what? I lost 2 friends in my 20s as well. And I think that feeling of being like, we're meant to be in our 20s and be invincible. And then suddenly grief comes along and smacks you around the face. And you're like, this isn't like losing a grandparent, but this has shaken the very foundations of like purpose and life and humanity. And then I was at a festival, and I've always loved festivals. It's the time when I feel the most confident and the most happy and the most free. Like I struggle to decide what to wear quite a lot of the time, but in a festival, I'm like, make it big, make it sparkly. Maybe there's fur.
I mean, fur is my go-to a lot of the time.
Like, and everything is fun and everyone just looks happy and it's great. And I was like, this is the feeling of invincibility that our 20s feel like. And I was at a festival performing with a theatre company I used to work with called the Handlebars, still do work with. And I got a call on the last morning of the festival from my dad when I had 1% battery. And I didn't realise that my phone was going to be okay. And I answered it. I was like, oh my God, Dad. And he just went, thank God you're okay. They've just announced a young woman fitting your description has been found dead at this festival. And that started a series of ideas and questions, mainly questions. I think my plays have always come about because I'm like, there is something going on that I don't know how to figure out. And I think writing, you shouldn't necessarily have the answer. Even at the end of it, even at the end of performing that show on and off, it was meant to do a national tour and then the pandemic happened. And then I've been re-performing it again this August. And I still don't know necessarily what, I guess, the answer is. But I know it helps to talk about things. My work comes from the idea that shame breeds in silence. And so even if it feels icky or wrong or it comes out, I think poetry affords you not being able to be very black and white in what's right and wrong, and like this is how you say something or this is how you don't say something, because you have this ever evolving metaphorical language. It's up to people's interpretation. They can take what they need from it. Meet came about because, which is my second show, for a long time I realised my poetry it was all a certain shade. I could find thematically things were coming up and out of it, especially at the beginning of the pandemic. And my male partner, my male brothers were like talking about how quiet and wonderful it was and that they could go for a run at midnight. And I was like, I'm still getting catcalled. There's a global pandemic going on and I still don't feel safe going for a run. Still. Will I ever feel safe going for a run? When did I stop remembering? When did I stop thinking I was safe? I was 7 when I realised my body was different. I was 7 when I was told to walk with your head up like you look like you know where you're going. And since then have been altering my behaviour in order to be safe. And every woman or AFAB person I knew had stories. And I was like, and at first I wanted to write, which may well have been more up your street. I wanted to write a female superhero that was the equivalent of Wolverine, who wasn't sexy and wasn't thin and wasn't in a latex catsuit, like was gritty and a little bit like, I don't know, like hairy or like had the knives coming out of the knuckles. And then I was thinking about keys between fingers, wrote a piece which went a little bit viral. And I was like, oh, that's weird. Oh, there's something in this that everyone is relating to. And I want to get to a point where I can perform a show like Meet and people go, God, do you remember when women used to do that? They don't anymore. That doesn't exist anymore. How out of date. Or how like, what a nice little time capsule. The show I really struggled to make because I wanted to wrap it up in the end in a bow and give people a way to feel.
Can't give everything a happy ending if you are like, this is not this.
And it's dark. Yeah. It's dark because you go like, as I was making it, Sarah Everard happened. Yeah. Sabrina Nessa happened.
I think there's a thing with art in like, obviously we want the beginning, middle and end with everything. And with the end, we want it to wrap up all the things, etc.
Yeah.
So what won't be used in the podcast, but we're talking off screen about was the whole thing of I'm playing Baldur's Gate, which is based on D&D. And I think there's a nice thing with D&D and Baldur's Gate does it as well. And that thing of like, there are lots of things that start, but like if you don't follow up or if things don't go into it, there is no ending to that because we don't have an end for that. You haven't gone to that. Like, I think whenever people look at stories, we want that satisfied thing, but in our lives, like so many things don't get that resolution.
Ever.
Things don't, and
it's unsatisfying. And I clocked that like getting reviewers in Edinburgh, one person gave me 2 stars, and she was just like, she doesn't know what she's doing. This doesn't have a resolution. This isn't a play. I was like, well, no, I've really played around with the form of theatre here. I've gone, how do you tell a story about this that isn't just trauma porn? how do you tell a story about this where I can't say, and if you do this, everybody, no woman will ever get hurt on the street again, in their homes again. No woman will ever be hurt by a man again. Oh God, it's way more nuanced than that. Here's the ending. Right here, we talk about it. Here's the ending. Right now, we remember it wasn't ever your fault. And that, again, shame breeds in silence. But yeah, some people didn't vibe with it at all.
Oh, yeah,
Others were like, this is the best thing in the Fringe. She's broken the mold and she's made it better. Because it feels like activism. I think I'm getting bolder the older I become as a theatre maker. And rather than feeling like, oh, because I don't write a 3-act structure where there's a chaise longue on stage and all of the characters are...
I mean, we need more chaise longues on stages, to be fair. I want a chaise longue on all my stages. I want a smoke machine on all my stages. That is what I needed to start.
I know. It's miraculous, though. Like, they are still the plays that get funded a lot of the time.
It's a whole thing of, like, it's the difference of plays, again, plays as stories versus plays about a theme. And if you're going about a theme, a lot of the time, because those themes are ongoing, there's often not an ending to it, not a resolution to it. If you talk about whether it's womanhood, blackness, the environment, etc., these are things that are still ongoing. We don't have an answer for, so I can't go, well, now everyone recycle and that will fix everything.
Yeah,
it's like,
also, you don't want to write a piece that's like, you know, the educational TIE piece where you go, and the moral is, yeah, people feel cheated. They're like, yes.
And like at most, it's a level of, again, going into the more story-based piece where there's womanhood or blackness or whatever is a secondary factor to, and this person's story is they got the job, and it's like, cool, but they're still dealing with womanhood. Like, cool, they overcame that arsehole, but womanhood is still
what about the rest?
Yeah, so it's like, cool, that fixes today. Like, again, very clearly a different vibe here, but it's that rom-com thing of like, cool, and they've got together now they want to live the rest of their lives together.
Everything's fixed.
It's like they're gonna have a shit, like cool, the meet cute was wonderful and you started off well.
Yeah.
Give me them in a year's time, because they're going to be together in a year's time, and like it's that thing of like, if you want an end, I can give you an end that seems happy, but we're going to go back to this.
I can give you escapism.
Yeah.
I wrote a version of that show where she turned into a wolf and went around and became a bit of a misandress. Yeah. And then I was like, I don't think this helps. And actually sitting down, and this is where like having a team is really important, because I sat down with my brilliant directors who were doing dramaturgy with me, and then we're like, let's pull apart this ending. But the ending was hard. I find endings hard for everything. I find endings hard, and I find titles hard, because you're like, how do you make something finite about something that is so expansive and ever evolving as well?
It makes me think of Promising Young Woman.
Yes. Which I started watching, and then I went, oh no, somebody's taken my idea. Oh crap, I should have done it sooner. And then I really wasn't content with her ending. I felt really sad about her ending, but then so glad that a film like that had been made. Found the response to it fascinating, because like so many people being like, it's outrageously violent, and I was like, have you seen Kill Bill? Like, have you seen anything by like Quentin Tarantino? Men are always this violent. Always.
It's a weird thing with the violence, and I think, again, I'm not saying it is too violent, but I think the fun thing with the violence, there is a level of like, I put violence into a real world scenario, and it's like, oh, now we don't like it. It's like, this is what we always deal with. This has always been a thing. Like, you were able to enjoy the violence because it was so far away from you. It's like, this isn't not that far away, and like, because it is that thing of like, you can give people that. So going back to tangent and whatnot, my vibe when I was at uni was I wanted to do a female supervillain story, and that was partly going on the whole, at the time, so still to this day, majorly influenced by Buffy the Vampire Slayer and that whole vibe.
Like, so iconic.
And the whole, like, whilst Joss Whedon is not the greatest of human beings that we are learning more and more about, I loved the idea of it being the whole point of Buffy was we take the person who was killed in every horror film and make them the hero. And the thing of like, oh, let's make them the villain, etc. And like, I love that unassuming villain kind of person. The thing of like, oh, they just look like this small little fight. Oh, you are the most evil person in the world. It's definitely like, it's so easy and cliche at this stage now. But I'm like, yeah, no, that works for me. Like, give me a 12-year-old as the 12-year-old girl as the main bad guy.
Yeah.
They'll be menacing as shit to me. I'm here for that kind of vibe. And like, you can do that theatre piece that will, or whatever piece that will have, and this person is tired of all the shit and goes on a killing spree or whatever, like that kind of thing. And it's like, that's fun every now and then, but it feels like that's not the point. It doesn't help. No, it's not. It doesn't help anyone. Like, yes, it goes into.
I think it was as well. It's like it's more almost like it's more revealing when it's theatre and you're live and you're there with an audience who, like, by this point, by this ending, you can feel them in the palm of your hand. You can hear that penny drop, and if you say to them, "And now I'm going to eject you into some fantastical escapism, like you're sat here watching a DC comic on stage," they're like, "No way, I bought into you. Don't take me away."
So that was part of my issue with the film Sorry to Bother You,
which I still haven't seen, you know.
So I really like it as a film, but I do feel that, like, whilst most of it is absurd to begin with, it goes for a different level of absurd at the ending, and it's like, not you jump the shark kind of vibe, but a thing of like, I liked the absurd you started off with, which was still vaguely believable and real, and like, oh, you went over the top and like it's wild, but it now means that, like, not the point you're making isn't.
You like, undermine yourself almost.
To me, again, I know people that loved it, etc. But like, for me, it's a bit like, I like the point you were making because it's the whole thing of like they're using the white voice on the phone, etc. and all that kind of stuff, and like. And it's like, and now you're going to tell a different thing, which now making a different point, it feels like, okay, you're able to do it, but it now feels like, to me, the point was cheapened a little bit.
Yeah.
But before we go into too much film talk and all of that, you kind of already touched on it, but like when you're doing your shows, you mentioned with the meat piece, you had the whole Wolverine poem. For you, in terms of writing and developing these shows, how much of it is developing it as a show from the offset? How much of it is, I've got a poem here that can go into it that you then expand on? Or is it a level of, I've written the show and here's a poem? Yeah, how is that process for you?
The development for both of them had been slightly different. Being a neurospicy, I don't write beginning, middle, end in that order, ever. I start to collate things. And a big part of my process when making something big is to lay it out on the floor so I can see it, visualize it, hold it, touch it, realize where a story arc is. With Honeybee, I wrote like way too much and had like 2 arcs of where this character went, and then had to streamline that with the director and realize we didn't need what happened when she got back from the festival. It was enough to do this. This works as an hour. And had, I think, a piece of spoken word that I then started tinkering with, and then wrote the beginning piece, and then realized, oh, okay, this is the story of someone trying to tell a story and getting tangents that take them off here. And the story ends when they're able to say what happened. Meat, actually, like one of my directors, Len, clocked. They were like, you've got a lot of the pieces in Meat are in Maladaptive. Is this like the play version of that book? So I was like, no, God, no. But I think I put together Maladaptive before I even realized. I was just like, inherently writing about being female means writing about women's safety and feeling like prey. So, and that's not even in Maladaptive, all of the pieces I've ever written about that. There's infinite amounts of pieces about that. But I realized, oh, I've started crafting a story. And actually, I really like this and I really like this. And when I realized that Meat was going to be a little bit bigger and bolder, initially my idea with Meat was that it would be myself and 2 musicians. And it would be more of a, I took so much inspiration from Kay Tempest's Brand New Ancients, of like this weaving together of music with poetry, with epic storytelling. And so, yeah, it was kind of like, let me, these pieces feel like they are telling the story of womanhood. And then I'm going to creatively craft and tease out what is the story around this. So wrote, yeah, again, way more than actually ever made it into the show. And yeah, I've gone on so many tangents now. I don't know where I am. What am I trying to say? I don't know what I'm trying to say. Did I start with the story or do I start with the poems? I don't know, both. For the thing that I'm thinking about writing next, I now have an idea that I can't stop thinking about, which is how I know I think you need to write this in today, because that's what's happened with the last two. But it feels big and scary and I don't know how to write it. So I should write it.
Well, like with the poems that kind of make it, so with the pieces, like, would you say there were poems in the pieces or versions of the poems in the pieces kind of thing? Like, is it a 1-for-1 thing or are they different forms in terms
They definitely get edited, because if I'm writing a play, I fiddle way more than writing poetry. Poetry, I'll write out and then it sort of organically gets edited as I'm saying it out loud at nights, and I realise I keep tripping up on that phrase. It's because it's not well written. This is what it should be. Or go to my very good friends like Tyrone Lewis, and I'm like, I'm going to put together another manuscript. Let's look at this. And then thinking about, okay, that works for page. This works for stage. Actually, you don't need to say this line. That rhyme is cute, but like it's basic. Cut that. Yeah, if I'm so now, like some of the wording, sentences, full poems from Maladaptive that are in Meat have definitely been edited. I think the Where Are the Other Allies, the Wolverine piece, is still pretty much the same. It's had a couple of lines tinkered about with. But yeah, I fiddle with the plays, especially if I'm doing something like Edinburgh and I'm saying the words. I don't think the editor doesn't ever quite go away if you're saying your own words. Like I'm like, I never say this line. Maybe it's because it's rubbish.
So tangent from that, a level of, especially with the acting and learning script, etc. I know there's some flexibility in the, depending on which script and which thing you are. Some directors or writers are much more fine with doing some level of ad-lib, etc.
Yeah.
For you, and when it comes to your poems versus when it comes to your shows, how bothered are you by things being like word perfect, etc.? Does it change between the shows and performing that's just a feature set?
I think I will have a different opinion if I get to the stage of handing over my plays or my poems for somebody else to read. Currently, I think it's still part of the... I'm not precious. Like, the words are important, but if I'm finding something organically in the spoken word, and I don't mean that as like beat poetry spoken word, I mean that as in like what's coming out orally, I think that's an important part of the journey of the edit. Or yeah, and sometimes you go, oh wow, I said this, I meant this. Actually, the written word that I originally wrote is way better than what I've started butchering, and it's coming through laziness, or it's coming because I got a laugh once on that line, or I've heard something or read something that's made me start thinking about this line in a different way. Yeah, but then I don't know, if I were to hand over something and I saw that an actor was always saying this instead of this, maybe I'd be a bit more pernickety. I don't know.
Like, I know anecdotally, for me at least, when I was doing both my books, especially the first book, because the first book has poems I was performing more regularly.
Yeah.
There were poems that I'd been performing a lot, and then like when I was trying to put the book together and finding the text of it to actually put into an actual Word doc for the manuscript, it's like, there's a whole stanza in here that I've kept missing every single time I performed it.
And you're like, I don't think I've gone back to the words for a year.
Yeah. And the thing of like, especially because like with my Sherlock poem, there's at least like one like stanza bit. It's like, that's really good. Yeah. I should learn that. Yeah. I should be doing that more.
Yeah.
Where some poems it's like, that poem's what, I've never said that line.
Yeah.
Maybe that line doesn't need to exist.
Maybe that line needs to go. But that's gorgeous. I've had exactly the same thing of coming back to your own writing and being like, damn, I should say this. Oh, you are good. It's nice because the ego so often can be like, oh, shit. Everything you write is shit. It's all cliched and you're not very clever. So to have a joy and be like, oh.
Well, like, especially with Fringe this year doing both shows there, which is insane. But nevertheless, how was it switching between, if you will, newer writing and older writing? And like, was there anything in Honeybee a bit like either level of like, oh shit, I peaked here, or oh shit, I've got a lot better than that?
Both. I really worried. I was like, maybe I'm a one-hit wonder. Maybe I wrote Honeybee and that's the thing that won awards, and now I'm going to have a tricky second album, which no one will get. And it's too weird and it's more obtuse in its form, so people aren't going to like it. I really loved saying the words again. I think because Honeybee was about to go on a huge journey of doing like a national tour and like that not happening, it was like, we've got unfinished business, you know? And so it was like, and I was worried I would take it to Fringe this year and everyone would be like, yeah, cute, it's really dated, no one feels like that anymore. And actually it wasn't. Like, oh God, I had somebody come up to me after one of the shows and be like, you know, I lost someone recently and I think if they'd have seen this, they'd still be here. And then I was like, that was my reason for writing this. I wanted to make one person feel a bit less alone. And it's still doing its job. I was less, I wanted people to feel less shame, but I didn't have, well, I also did want people to feel less alone. I want my work to be inherently hopeful. And yeah, my God, somebody messaged me the other day on Instagram and was like, I came to see me and then I brought my daughter and her friend, and we are, 2 generations apart from each other. And we were all so moved and so affected by your work, and what you're doing is so important. Please don't ever give up. And then you're like, oh, that's why I did that one. That's why I'm doing that one. I'm not done with either of them. I think people always need to know that they're enough and it wasn't their fault. So, yeah, the themes in Honeybee, like there were certain passages of text that I remember when I was first rehearsing it felt really difficult to say out loud. And now I look back at it in my 30s, not my 20s, with a certain amount of relief and a certain amount of sadness that I'm not completely like, wow, I don't feel insecure like that at all anymore. Yeah, I still think it's a good piece of work, which is nice.
I guess with having shows that are a lot more longer length stuff, not to put you on the spot now.
Put me on the spot.
So much of the spoken word scene is your 5-minute slot at best kind of thing, or you maybe get a 20-minute feature. So with these hour-long shows, like, do you want there to be more space on the scene to be doing longer pieces at night? Is that
I only say that
5 minutes is enough for some open micers. Some open micers, all you need is 5 minutes.
Can I do one more?
No, you can't.
No, we need to go home. No, that's really mean. I think there's a place for it, but it's like, this is more theatrical spoken word. An open mic night is not the time to get out your epic poem in homage to Homer. This is the Odyssey, but set in London. Maybe that's a good idea. I don't know. And yeah, there's something brilliant about like getting your say like your poet badge. That's something cooler. See, so not cool.
I mean, badges are cool. We love a Blue Peter badge,
but like a poet badge, right? In having to get we've eloquent got the UK and
Drag Race
to
badges.
time.
Badges are cool.
Yes, we should get badges. Campaign make badges for poets. You are getting like, you're earning your stripes. This is what I mean, not earning your badges. Get there in the end.
Again,
I am a writer.
Earning your Blue Peter badges.
Earning your Blue Peter badges by being like, say what you have to say and say it in 3 minutes. Say what you have to say and say it in 5 minutes. It doesn't always have to be like, and mic drop and bam and explode and like, fuck the Tories. But get really good at like comedians, right? They'll spend a year working on a tight 5 minutes and then they build it up to 10 and then they build and then you build and then you build and then you build. And I think like I'm setting up a lot more scratch nights at a youth theatre that I work at so that people have an opportunity to try out slightly longer pieces. Again, this first scratch night that I'm doing with them in a few weeks, everybody's got maximum 5 minutes, and I've asked the writers to give their work to actors so that there's distance, so that everyone can start to learn. But if people start realising, oh, you know what, I've written like, I don't know, I've written a couple of scenes, then I go, okay, well, look, maybe we do a 2-act scratch night next time and we do 5 minutes in the first half and then we focus on 2 and then we do 2 20 minutes. So I think there need to be more scratch nights, 100%. When I first graduated drama school, there were loads, and it's an opportunity for people to try stuff out. The Fringe always used to be somewhere where you could try stuff out, and it's not anymore because big papers come along and are like, why isn't it ready for your West End transfer?
Yeah. And like even things like, I love Free Fringe. It is where when I used to own Boomerang Club, that was where Boomerang Club would exist, and so many other poets do Free Fringe. But even with that, Free Fringe still exists, but Edinburgh prices keep going up and up and up.
Yeah.
Even something like Free Fringe is now becoming so prohibitive for people.
Totally. And it means the artists are having to stand at the door, barraging the way out, telling people you should be paying 20 quid for this show. Which, yeah, sure, they should, but like, cost of living crisis. I don't always have 20 quid for a show. And then you're like, well, yeah, but people pay £7 for a pint sometimes now, so they should be paying 20 quid for a show. No, it's all fucked. Again, the Tories. I said this the other day and someone went, it would be the same with any government in charge. And I was like, well, what do we do? Do we burn it all to the ground?
I mean, this is not quite a politics podcast, but it is very much that vibe of like, at the moment, the options feel like pure evil or slightly less evil. And that thing of like, I like the idea of slightly less evil, and that thing of like, there's a lot of things that slightly less evil are doing wrong. Yeah. But the level of at least slightly less evil doing things wrong rather than fully breaking the law, doing things illegally, etc. Yeah. It's like, at the very least, the not doing illegal stuff should be the bar. I'd have thought. Like, the fact that that's now a question of like, and that's going into politics, and this isn't.
It's hard to talk about just existing. It's hard to talk about
creators about. Like, creative life is so intertwined with politics and whatnot. There'll be an episode of this podcast where I'll go fully into politics, and that will be I'll bring back Repeat Beat Poet to do a guest episode on a politics one, because he will go to town on that one, and I will just sit back and watch it and just like, no, I'm fine.
Lovely.
I can delegate and not be in charge of everything all the time. I can do that. But on the things that I am in charge of, that is a good time to end the Let's Talk About section, and now we're going to move into the fun random. I say being in charge, I'm going to literally relinquish control as we go into slow fire questions and the randomness of it all. So let's do that.
Okay.
So, for slow fire questions, for people that aren't fully aware, though if you're listening to this, how are you not aware? But anyway, slow fire questions is me taking what was my quick fire questions, like I do with my little social YouTube videos, and just basically getting more time to play around with them rather than seeing how many you can ask so quickly. We'll ask some questions, actually go into it. I'm fully aware that because some of these questions are random, well, all the questions are random, they're like, cool, we'll do a 5-minute talk over like buying clothes on this podcast potentially. Who knows? Or we'll do a 5-minute talk over what is spoken word. It's all and everything in between. Right. So can you please give me a number between 1 and 100?
27.
But then we're starting off with, do you believe in love at first sight?
Oh, that's a goodie, isn't it? I would always say no, but I think I am a hopeless romantic at heart. And I think my partner I'm with now, I did fall in love with at first sight. I said the words, oh no, when I met them. And I think I felt it. And there was like I met you and I knew you were going to be really big in my life. And if you were good at performing, I was fucked. And they were. And he is. So.
Well, yeah, because like, if memory serves, this was also the fun of a very intense start to a relationship. Because like, you're going to start dating and, oh, look, a pandemic's happening.
Yeah,
so
my God. We were doing long distance. And then suddenly it was like, wow, we've been together, all of something wild, like 7 weeks. Let's live together and see no other humans. You've got enough pants for 4 days. That's how you really speed up a relationship and put it under some heat. Yeah. I don't know. I always used to say, and I think we're not necessarily the best judge at whether it's love at first sight, because more often than not, it's a chemical reaction and it's lust at first sight.
Yeah.
And you're like, do you just want to get in their pants? And I think most of the time it's chemistry, not necessarily love. Interestingly, I don't think my partner would say it was love at first sight. But I'm much more of a, I don't know, yoga woo-woo creative. He's a bit more fact-based science.
No, I know.
Which is probably why we have these differing opinions.
I know for me, especially because of the main place I'm meeting people is poetry nights and whatnot. And I guess first sight is how literal am I taking that?
Yeah.
Like, I know for me at least, it's definitely been a vibe of like, you're someone I want to know.
Yes.
It's definitely, I get that a lot of things. Like, there's been many, like, I have gotten to the stage in poetry now where I enjoy poetry nights, but in the nicest possible way. There's a bit level of like, I've got my friends now. I know, not I don't need any more friends, but level like, I'm comfortable with how things are. I don't need to be socializing too much. And this is just a night off for me. So I'm not being the social butterfly all the time and like going up to every single poet and going, you're amazing. I know it's good to do that, but I'm not doing it all the time. But
also you got to preserve your energy. Yeah. And if you're always outpouring like that.
But like in the love at first sight thing, there's definitely a level of sometimes where, again, not a love thing, but a thing of like, you're interesting. Yeah. I need to know more about you, which as will be coming out, as is already out on the podcast, I met Anina at a poetry takeaway thing a couple of months ago now. Yeah. And literally on the way, so poetry takeaway was the first time I properly talked to her, met her, and I go like, come round mine tomorrow and we'll do all of the poetry filming and talking and whatnot. Level like, no, this works, let's do something here. Yeah. And I definitely have that kind of a vibe of people of like, there's something here, let's do something here.
This
and not
works.
Even like romantically all the time.
Yeah, but knowing there's a connection. I also think love, like I think it's the Italians and the Greeks have about 7 different kind of words for love. We have one. And therefore, when you talk about like, I fall in love with my friends, I fall in love with pieces of art, I fall in love with like animals. And when we have that same word for love that's romantic love, it's really hard to quantify love at first sight. Having to establish is it platonic love, is it romantic love, and everything in between, etc. And I also think like love, talking about being a hopeless romantic, now not being one, isn't enough and it doesn't last forever. And so you can have definitely fallen in love with people platonically, romantically, obsessively, like whatever you want to call it, and then that fall away. And that is, I think it's like we have spaces where you can grieve a breakup that's romantic, but not necessarily one that's for your art form. People that are totally in love with being an artist and have to fall away from it, or friendship groups. Similarly as well on that, the fact that like there aren't spaces to grieve a friendship that has completely fallen apart and broken up. And breakups are so hard to navigate with friends. There's not a language especially when you're like, but we fell in love. Like they know more about me than my family members do. How are we not that tight anymore? When you're just like, not everything lasts forever, and sometimes and things just run its course. The whole thing like, well, do we unfollow each other on Instagram now? Is that a thing? Because Yeah.
Another number, please.
59.
59. We are going for, where would you most want to perform poetry?
Okay. So I went to, there's probably others, but this has just popped straight into my head, so I'm not going to try and change it. I saw Joelle Taylor and Kay Tempest at Outspoken at the South Bank Centre. I want to say a few months ago. At some point recently, and the vibe was so good and the space was so good, and the person I was with was like, you could be on that stage. And so now I would like to be on that stage. That would be nice. There are probably others, but that's the first one that's popped into my head.
I don't have any numbers or facts to back this up, but I feel like it's one of the most consistently well-attended poetry nights in the UK.
And sells out, and it's classy, it's gorgeous.
I have my own personal opinions about how they interact with the spoken word scene.
Mm-hmm.
I think especially Anthony Naxaguru, and I'm happy to name people. I do feel that whilst I respect him as a creative, I do think he's currently in a space where he kind of goes, he is almost above spoken word poetry, it feels at times. And I do think with that, and again, clearly it's working for them, and and not saying that he doesn't like spoken word poetry, but it does feel at times like this is the scene that got you to where you are, and you're kind of going, I would like to see them interacting with people on the scene more, but it's not limited to them. A lot of the bigger nights seem to stick with, we're getting this group of poets.
Yeah, and people who are famous and don't necessarily need a platform, right?
Yes, if that's more of the phrasing, and that's a better way of phrasing it, of I would like to see them using their space to platform people.
Yeah.
Because I feel like a night like that, I don't think people are going because, oh, you've got all these names there, so that's what's selling out. I think there's some level of, not you're always going to sell out, but level of, you've got a good crowd, good audience, good whatever going on here, that you can put, here's this open micer I saw.
Yeah.
Give them this space or whatever. I think there could be doing more there, but what they're doing is incredible stuff. I would just like to see them more bits. I'm going on my own tangent here, but this is going into my almost...
I don't think it's a tangent. It's looking at who gets to gatekeep the spaces. I still have a thing of, if we're talking about where would you like to perform poetry, whether it's my own, whether it's Shakespeare's words, I would still love to be on the RSC. Yeah. That was my dream when I was a young actor training. Likewise with the National, it still feels for me like there's a bit of a glass ceiling and a gatekeeper of who gets to be in those spaces. And this is the same in the poetry scene,
It's almost my feelings on RuPaul in a way of there's so many people that, myself included, want, seeing how big Drag Race has become for drag and just in general how big it's become, they want to see that competition spread out more, include drag kings, so many more different types of drag, etc.
Drag kings and drag things, absolutely.
I think that would be incredible. At the same time, though, I also respect that this is RuPaul's show, and RuPaul can do whatever the fuck they want with it. No one...
Yeah.
There is that weird morality obligation of... I like the idea of platforming and helping other people come up. And I think the irony of this is, people are still doing that. Ru is still doing that, for example. Anthony's still doing that. The thing but you could do so much more.
When you have a platform as big and as large and as well established and also as sturdy... Yeah, where else are you being visible? Yeah. Because again, it's not virtue signaling you're helping other people up, but leading by example.
The challenge then comes, is it your responsibility as the one place of the platform to platform and do everything for everyone?
Yeah.
Going back to your shows, do you have to speak for every single woman everywhere? Is that,
yeah. You're always going to get it wrong. Somebody's always going to be like, you're not doing enough.
So, yeah. Another number, please.
11.
11, we are going for, what is your brand?
Oh my God, that's hard. My brand is warm. My brand is chaotic. My brand is creative, energetic, soft, vibrant, exciting, important, playful, raw, full of emotion and full of hope. I did better at answering that than I thought I would. I think I hate it because you're like, you are a commodity. Yeah. What are you?
It is the whole, with the, like you were saying earlier, the whole business and creative side having to be so linked. Like, for you personally, like, whether it is the book or the shows or anything, like, how much does your brand become a part of that? It's like, well, like, whether it's actively or not, how much of, like, well, I'm known for writing these poems, I guess I got to give you more of them. Like,
but also, I think it's the thing of, like, I always think about the fact that, like, I never set up a separate Instagram for my poetry, for my yoga teaching, for my acting, for me as a human being. It's all interlinked, which means the boundaries are sometimes harder to keep because people can, like, comment on, like, your holiday photo or, like, the picture of you and your cat. And you're like, oh, do I want, like, a casting director to see this? Do I want this tour booker to see this? Yeah, fuck it. That's kind of like what makes me an approachable non-arsehole that people feel like after they've seen a show, me do, whether that's like a full hour long piece or me do like a 3-minute trying out new shit at a poetry night, people feel like they can come up to me afterwards because there isn't and now I'm on and I'm in brand mode and now I'm not. There should be a distance, but I don't know how to do that.
There.
I just am.
You're going to go 2 more questions, so give me another number, please.
97.
97. Favourite fictional character?
What a great question. I don't know. I think I'd do better at this if this was a quick fire, because now I'm thinking in too many and I'm like,
they're giving you too much time and too much freedom.
You have. The characters that exist within the world of his Dark Materials in the books, not the TV show. I think. No, I think Arya Stark. That's really basic, but like, no, both. I'm being greedy. I have both. Both of those, I held those books to my chest afterwards and was so invested in those characters. And again, it's like strong, young female leads, just like going around and existing in a world that wasn't made for them to have an easy journey. Even though they're fantasy worlds, I think there's a lot of like, they're healing and inspiring for me, even though I'm not a little girl anymore. A bit like a Russian doll, like a little girl inside of me reads them and feels bigger and stronger because of them.
Nice. And then our last question.
You pick a number.
Oh, no, because I know the number feels too pointed of anything particular.
Okay. 5.
Star Wars or Star Trek?
I've had to answer this before in a processed one. I really can honestly say to you, I think I've never watched an episode of Star Trek in my life, so it has to be Star Wars. I used to watch them with my brothers. Not all of them.
It's like my very nerdy answer. Like, Star Wars was very much that thing that changed how films were made in many ways. Like, legitimately, like, there's so many. I'm not saying that everyone makes it goes to sci-fi, but like the way that Star Wars was made has changed how so many films are made. How even there's a book that I need to read, whatever, like how Star Wars changed the world or like dominated the world, whatever it is. Because like Star Wars was also one of the main things that made like merchandising what the fuck it is today. And like, so Star Wars changed it in that way. Whoever Star Trek was always the one that was always a whole, fecker, we can do queer, we can do black, we can do this kind of vibe. And like, they each had their place in that kind of way of like, we'll do this and it's become a thing.
Yeah.
Which has been nice. But Star Wars is the world I gravitate to most, though
Star Trek feels a bit clean to me. Everyone, do you know what I mean? Like, they're all ironed and they're like pristine, whereas, I don't know, you get weird things that you're like, what even is that in the
like,
Star Wars?
Star Trek is it's got a few spin-offs that every now and then are touching on the dirtier side of things, but it still goes back to being clean and like, Star Trek definitely goes much more of that fantasy world is perfect thing.
Yeah.
It also every now and then feels a bit more police state at times.
Yeah.
But
I'm not about that life.
It's that weird police state of like, we love everyone and everything's fine, but also we are going to tell you that everything's fine vibe, and like, who put you in charge?
Yeah.
I mean, you're doing good things, but also who said you were the one to say what's good and...
Yeah, not for me. Not for me.
Yes, where Star Wars and their weird religious cult thing kind of works.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, that's clearly the way to finish Chris.
Absolutely.
Podcast.
Bring up the cults.
Oh.
I've been listening to a podcast recently that was comparing a lot of drama schools to cults.
I mean,
made me think a lot of things.
I mean, I feel like there's a thing that, like, because like, where were you drama school?
I went to East 15.
Okay. I because I know a lot of the Mounts View lot, and almost that thing of like, I guess I'm similar to me in uni, level of like, everyone in the Mountain View lot becomes almost part of the Mountain View family kind of thing, and like, we all like, it's that kind of almost cult thing, like, well, you came through that, you're one of us kind of thing. Like, we had that in poetry of like, well, if you've done Barbican Poets once, you're part of the Barbican Poets for life kind of thing. It's like, we're okay, cool, we're part of this weird family cult thing.
More the things that you do because you are told to.
Mm-hmm.
We won't get into it now. We haven't got time.
Nah, we are going to end the podcast here. So smoothly and seamlessly is how we always roll.
Absolutely.
Not at all chaotic.
No.
But yes, thank you for joining me on the podcast this morning. Cool. You have a camera that if you want to be found online, this is where you can tell people where to find you and what you're doing and all of that.
You can find me either at my website, which is www.elledillonreams.com. And there I think you can find my socials. I'm generally just at Elle Dillon-Reams. I don't have a poet name. I just am.
The fact that you did the www at the start of it.
Is that really cringe? Is that
that's
old school?
That's old school.
I'm not very technical. Is that... Oh, call me vintage.
https.com/.
I'm just being rude. This has gone from really boosting my confidence to make me go, oh, I'm not cool. I started by saying I'm not cool and you've just proven it. Now I need to go to therapy.
Yes, you can find Process. Again, as I've been reliably informed, we are very easy to Google. Google Process Productions and you can probably find us.
Probably www.processproductions.com, no?
Oh, no, we are .net. We're
well,
.net.
there we go.
That was the cheaper domain to buy. It's calling that what it is. Because capitalism. But yes, you can find us online. There's link trees in the bios, etc. that will link you to all the things. I've been Tyrone Lewis, but you already know that. Don't have proper ending, so we'll steal the ending from Process as always. Love you all. Now fuck off. Bye.
Bye.